Going live. We're live.
Yes.
We did it. I don't know if anybody is going to join us. I feel weird doing this because if you don't know what it is, but the Project for Awesome is happening right now. When we're done here, I highly recommend you go to projectforawesome.com/donate. I'm going to be repeating that like in my head for the next 48 hours.
So is this practice?
But we have a standing appointment, okay?
Mhm.
So even though I feel like 75% of the people who have been joining us are over there at
Doing that thing.
projectforozen.com/live, this video will be here for you when you're done with that. You can come join us. So hello to everybody watching this later on a delay when you have the time. Today we are discussing episode 6, which I lost my notes, an all-new Halloween Spooktacular.
Spectacular.
Yes.
Yep. And it is my job today to give you the plot rundown. Nobody really cares about this. Just to let you know, I'm exhausted. I always
care.
feel like I'm like, thank you. I always feel like I'm going to do my best. But today, truly, friends, I will do my best. Okay. Despite presumably being in the 90s this week, we were supposed to go from 80s to 90s. We start immediately with a 2000s-esque sitcom. We go straight to the title sequence, and it's very Malcolm in the Middle. I did not watch the show. It's not something that I am familiar with, but it is enough. It's so big
It's
in pop culture.
Yeah.
It is
I
iconic.
also did not watch the show, but immediately knew what it was.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And I was like, wait a second, you skipped you skipped something here.
Go. Well, big trauma, the more trauma, the more time jump. Okay, that's that. I feel like that lends credence to it's trauma induced time jumps.
I think when we'll probably talk about this when we talk about the sitcom portion, but there were 90s-esque things that were but I feel like, yeah, we definitely skipped a decade. So we watch the title sequence, and then we join the sitcom in progress immediately. And little Billy tells us, direct to camera, also very Malcolm in the Middle-esque, that it's Halloween, and Halloween is a time for family and getting to dress up. And then little Tommy is on hand. If I'm mixing them up, it's
I have
one
no
of them
idea.
and the other.
I have no idea which one is which.
Tommy is the cool one, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So little Tommy says that that's wrong because Halloween is all about candy. So this sets up sort of the dynamic and what the episode is about. Nearby, Uncle Pietro is sleeping, and the kids are equal parts enamored with him, because he's so cool, but also kind of scared of him because where'd he come from and why is he sleeping all the time? And also he's super speedy, so they're a little scared of that as well. Uncle Pietro wakes up and they start kind of playing around, roughhousing, and they're screaming. So Wanda comes downstairs and she's dressed as the Scarlet Witch, like how she is in the comics. So that was a really cool little detail. And then she's followed closely by Vision, who is in a truly horrific costume, which is also comics inspired, but man, wow, it was ugly.
Yeah, Wanda's is cute. That's like a fun.
Yes. And they play it off and they say that she's like a Sokovian fortune teller and he's like a luchador, but they're in their costumes. So that was neat as well. So Vision is getting ready to go patrol as part of the neighborhood watch. And Wanda is not happy about this because it's the kid's first Halloween and he's supposed to go trick-or-treating. But Pietro volunteers to step in and take the kids. So Vision is like, okay, bye. And he leaves to go by himself. Meanwhile, outside of Westview, Monica, Jimmy, and Darcy are all real mad at Hayward for being the worst and for, messing up, antagonizing Wanda and getting absolutely nothing out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So they tell him as much.
Then doubling down, getting nothing out of it.
Yes. And then doubling down. Mm-hmm. Still being very much on that let's kill Wanda tip, even though they're like, you cannot outgun her.
Right.
This is not. And he's like, what guns? So So they tell him as much, and that gives him an excuse to fire them all. And as they're being like escorted out, Monica and Jimmy like take out the sword agents who are escorting them and steal their uniforms. And then back in Westview, the kids are enjoying Halloween, especially since Uncle Pietro can go real fast and get them all the candy. Um, Wanda finds Herb, and asks him about the neighborhood patrol, like the neighborhood watch, and she's like, how's that going? And how's Vision doing? And he's like, Vision's not on neighborhood watch duty tonight. So he lied. He big lied. What else? Back outside. Oh no, meanwhile, we watch Vision and he's like walking away from the center of town. So he's like exploring out past. The kids are still enjoying Halloween, and Tommy discovers that he too has super speed. He can go, just like his uncle can. And then back outside of Westview, Monica, Jimmy, and Darcy have a plan to get back into Westview, and it involves some contact that Monica has, some mysterious contact that she keeps telling us is coming. I'm sure people who know more than I do have guesses. I have no idea. Darcy also warns Monica not to go back into the hex because every time she crosses, it like changes her like molecular whatever. And so her cells. Monica's like, it's okay. I'm going to do it because I understand Wanda and I need to help Wanda. So she's going to head off. Darcy decides that she's actually going to stay back because in addition to being an astrophysicist, she's also a hacker. And so she's hacking into Sword's files. She discovers that she discovers that Hayward is tracking Vision. And then also there's like one last firewall she has to get through that has something big, so she's going to stay behind and do that. Vision, the further he gets out from like towards the outskirts of town, the less it is alive. So people are all sort of like creepily frozen in place. And as he's discovering this, he also finds Agnes out there for reasons that are beyond me. And she is in a car sort of frozen and says that she got lost out there. She took a wrong turn. So Vision kind of brings her out of her like, you know, whatever she's in, like, I don't know, the word is escaping me. Trance, there you go. The trance that she's in.
Like, I don't
Nicole's like, whatever words, I don't know. Vision brings her out of the trance and she's like, Vision, it's you're an Avenger, you can help us. And he's like, well, I can help you, but what's an Avenger? So we really confirm that he's got no memories of like what happened to him outside before he got to Westview. So she starts freaking out and she starts asking if she's dead, considering, and he's like, why would you? No, you're not dead. And she's like, well, you're dead. He takes that news pretty well, considering. But she's freaking out. So he puts her back in the trance but promises to help. Wanda and Pietro are catching up, I guess. And it turns out that Pietro has all of his MCU memories. So he remembers being shot, but he looks like X-Men Pietro. So we don't know what is happening there at all. But also he's thoughts. Like, yeah, okay. I don't know what's happening there at all. Nicole has some thoughts.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just saying I have some. This is speculation hour. It's really what we do here. So anyway,
correct.
I'll let you finish.
He also like confronts Wanda, like, what the heck are you doing in the town? Like, but he's also like kind of okay with it. He's like, I'm not mad at it, but like, what are you doing? And she, I guess because he's not like judging her for it, she's like more forthcoming than she has ever been. And so she basically says that she doesn't know how she's doing this, that she just remembers feeling incredibly empty and sad. And then this has happened now, which is, you know, big sad, big feels o'clock. Darcy gets past the firewall and it's a file called Cataracts, which she emails to Jimmy. And then she hears some commotion outside. So instead of going to join her team, she goes to figure out what's going on. And it's Vision crossing the hex barrier. and he is big time struggling trying to get past it. And so all the sword agents are just watching him like struggling. So Darcy starts like, help him, what are you guys doing? And gets like handcuffed for her trouble. And then Vision starts like disintegrating. Pieces of him are like coming off, so he's clearly dying. He cannot be alive on this side of the hex. And everybody's just watching. Back inside Westview, we discover that Billy also has powers, as he like telepathically is hearing what is happening to his dad. So he warns his mom. He's like, dad's in trouble. And Pietro is on hand to be really like flippant about it and be like, don't worry about it. Your husband can't die twice, which are like Wanda's triggers, right? So she ends up like throwing her brother in, like aside, and then like making a snap decision on what to do to save Vision. And basically what she does is expand the reach of like the hex of and she just pushes the boundaries of the hex, and we see her magic engulf further and further out. And this includes a bunch of sword agents which get turned into a circus.
Their whole little base gets swallowed up and becomes a circus.
I love it. Magic. We see a car, like why can I never think of the word of like the car sales thing?
Like an ice cream truck?
Yeah, where you buy
dealership,
a car.
A dealership.
A dealership. The second time.
Yeah, in a plaza synopsis. Yes. I forgot about that. On Mom's Got a Date with a Vampire. Yep.
Yeah. The dealership. It swallows one of those, and then we see it also swallow Darcy, who is now in Westview. So Monica and Jimmy manage to escape, and unfortunately, so does Hayward. And I think that's it.
Yeah, that's
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happens. So let's start when we always start. Did you like it?
Yeah. I thought that this was probably a little like the last two episodes were like revelation. Like it felt like we were gaining a lot of pieces of the puzzle. This didn't quite feel that way, but there was a lot more. There were like nods to the comic books. There were things that were confirmed. The sitcom portion of it was neat, and it hit my nostalgia buttons, even though I hadn't watched Malcolm in the Middle. Like that portion of it was still kind of like fun and funny. So yeah, this was overall good for me. How about you?
Yeah, I also overall liked it. I think for basically the reasons you just said, this might have been my least favorite of the ones so far, but like, I don't know, it's episode 6 of 9. So like where it fits in the trajectory of the story, I'm not particularly surprised that that's the case. In terms of the larger story, the like, I don't know, I have like mixed feelings, but there were lots of really lovely moments in it. I also really loved the 90s sitcom intro, particularly because this is the episode where the twins start becoming real characters in their own right, and they had stuff to do this time, where last time they were in the last episode they existed, but they were plot fodder in a way that like this episode they had a little bit more agency, and so starting with that Malcolm in the Middle like intro and like all of the sort of sitcom beats that they were using with that to introduce, okay, here, like now these two child characters like exist and have a purpose and whatever, was really just like clever and served, the meta storytelling that is happening here really, really well. And I loved that. I had some problems with some of the the bigger storytelling pieces, namely Haywood just in general. Like I'm not, I don't know. I don't like it, to be honest.
I don't either. I think, okay, that was going to be my big thing too, because I think in this, I don't know, I feel like this has done such a good job of navigating like tricky, we don't know what's going on, so we're like navigating this area of like these characters that have these like clouded motivations, and we don't really know too much about them. So by extension, you get these characters that feel not necessarily nuanced, but they have a lighter touch just because
Mm-hmm.
we don't know very much about them. So he just comes in like a wrecking ball into this, like,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
he is so well defined and sort of like compared to the other characters, but also single-minded and underdeveloped because he just is there to be military guy with the guns. And I'm not saying that maybe later on they won't like throw us a twist that where we'll be like, oh, okay. But for these episodes, man, it lands
Yeah.
like a hammer. It's not good.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That I think is really like I hadn't thought about it in quite those terms, but 100%. It's like where so much of the way the other characters are written, there is this like nuanced precision that feels there is like it's a scalpel versus like a chainsaw in terms of how
Yes.
they are hitting the story. And I just yeah. I yeah, I don't know what's going on there. I in part just out of my like sheer I don't know deference to the rest of the storytelling and also the way that up to this point the show has trained me to be big like chaotic conspiracy thinking. There is a part
Yes.
of me that feels like there is some thread between Haywood and the I don't know, the puppet master that I'm still convinced that there is something else, that it's not just Wanda. Like I'm not, yeah. And so those two things feel sort of like threads, which okay, so to that point, Quicksilver, that is actually part of my like the thing about Quicksilver, I'm it's not clear to me what's going on with this character. I'm still a little bit confused. I feel more confused actually than I did last week. However, the theories that he is actually the whatever, like the devil character that everybody thinks is going to be the big bad, that theory feels really legit to me because
Okay.
of the way in which he keeps asking her, because the way that he is asking her to explain how she did it, there's a like it's not I feel like if this were actually her twin brother, like that, there's a tone to that conversation that's very like, so like how did you go about it? Like I don't know. I don't know if it's I don't know if it's that I don't know enough about like that sort of villain story or whatever, but something about that it felt nefarious to me. It felt sort of like casual, like yeah, too invested in the how of it in a way that seems weird to me, and like there is something else going on there. So I yeah
Yes,
that yeah
it was very much like, "Hey, girlfriend, what's up? High five. Cool possession of a town. How'd you do it?" Like it was
yes yes yes
like this line of questioning, sir. What is happening?
uh-huh. Well, and the fact that okay, so the other piece of it, the questioning and the fact that he brought up the kids, because we like the previous basically last night in assuming this is happening sort of like one day into the next is sort of kind of how they're presenting this to us. So last night Vision asked her that question before he arrived, okay, and he shows up at the late at night. He shows up, and then he wakes up in the morning and the town is full of children. So I don't know, like, why is he asking that question in the first place? Because ostensibly he wasn't there when the town was empty of children.
Right.
So
Yeah.
just to, you want to see the pinboard going on in my head during that conversation.
Yes. Yes.
That's the thing. Those are the things that I picked up on in there that there's more. There's more going on. I don't know what, but there's something else
Yeah.
there.
So you like there's like several threads there. So the kids like being their own fully formed characters is like one part that was good about this, like that felt good. Also like to see them, but also because we've had Wanda and Vision as our two like super powered beings here.
Yeah.
And Vision has felt like a little like tempered down just because Wanda is sort of like at the forefront here. But now we've got three other super powered beings entered in the story. So to see it like growing in that scale, but also if you think about like the way that Wanda is now being outnumbered, maybe not by Quicksilver because I don't think I don't know how much agency he has in this world, depending on who he actually is. But the twins seem to be able to exist a little outside of her power, or I don't know, to have some sort of agency, like you said. So
Mm-hmm.
now Vision and the twins, and Wanda's still like on the opposite end of that. I don't know. I just feel like she's getting outnumbered in a way that I'm like kind of excited about.
Well, and also it seems the other thing to this point about like the number of superheroes growing, I have a feeling that part of the point of this is to turn Monica Rambeau into a superhero based on, I
Yes.
mean, I thought that based on the way that the testing episode, like that already, I was like, okay, that's clearly where we're going. And I think in the comics, she like maybe is Captain Marvel at some point, or something
Yes.
like that. But anyway, yeah, that is clearly like after this episode especially where they talked about, if you've been through the hex twice, it's like really changing your cells and stuff, and she's planning to head into it again. So
Uh-huh.
that to me feels like where we're going with that.
Yes.
uh
Yes.
so that's going to be one more superhero for the mix.
Yeah. And even her reaction was very superhero e. It's hero-y, just sort of her reaction. But if you're thinking about like the full thread of her like origin story, her
Mm-hmm.
being like, no, I'm willing to do it like for Wanda, and I've had enough of cells. Like I saw my mom go through it. It was like such a superhero arc that I was like, okay, here we
Yes.
go.
Yeah. That moment was really like, yes, peak superhero. Not specifically like peak B character superhero moment too. Like we don't have time to give you like a movie's worth of superhero, but like what's the like Cliff Notes version of a superhero origin story? It was that. Like that. That was it. You nailed it. Great job, Monica.
And
Yes.
okay, and so speaking of Cliff Notes too, with like Haywood, they tried to do this whole thing where they were like, "You weren't here during the blip, and that's why I'm mad at superheroes," which could have been a compelling reason for him to be anti-superhero, because there was that 5-year span of time or whatnot that was like real bleak,
Mm-hmm.
when half
Mm-hmm.
the world's population was gone. So I had, for him to have that line of thinking was fine. But the thing to me is that if you were here during that time, you saw what the Avengers did. You know that throwing a missile in there is not going to work, buddy. So like, what are you doing? Like his rationale didn't follow. So
Mm-hmm.
the seed was there, which makes me think that maybe they're not doing this on purpose and it's just playing out this way. Like they tried to give him some sort of characterization. It's just not really working.
Yeah, I mean, yes, uh, it definitely felt that way in the context of this episode. Yeah, that's to like my sort of point that like maybe there's something else going on there. Like that is 100% like me like projecting my hope.
Yes, I'm with you. I
Like
hope
it's
so
not
too.
because yes, because I also absolutely feel that way. And the other thing too is that like if you're gonna give, um, this has come up. This has been a thing in so many other, like I don't know, sort of proper, like broad, like properties like this, where I'm trying to think of a really good example. Oh, this is totally random and like not a great example, but that Buffy book that we read,
Yeah.
Slayer, the YA book, that had a similar sort of vibe where they had these characters who were very mad at the characters who like we came into the story loving, right? So like you had the pre-existing universe of characters we love and like identify with and have strong feelings towards them, and then you have these characters in this world. In the case of the book, she really did have the space to solve this problem and didn't. In the case of the show, like to be introduced to have a character, a significant character whose whole thing is like fuck the people who you already like know and identify with and understand, like you have to do more to set it up than that, like to
Yes.
make it feel narratively worth anything. And
Yes.
especially since this person is a like he is a leader, he's in this leadership position. It's not, I don't know, that his role is too significant both in the show and in like in on like a meta level, like inside the whatever inside sword, like he's too meaningful to the show and to the characters in the show for that to feel earned, for him, for
Right.
his right to say fuck fuck superheroes to feel earned in the confines of this story. unless there is something else going on there. Still
Yeah,
hoping that
which
that's
there
the
could
case.
be.
There could be. But yeah, it has, he ends up feeling just so heavy-handed as a character and not particularly fleshed out. And to your point, like it seems like it would be, it's a perfectly plausible story, this other version of what's going on during the 5-year span between snaps. But like that story that has not been told at any point in the
Right.
end. Like that story doesn't. You're
But
referencing a, yeah.
even in the context of this story, however, I'm not like it should be easy because I'm not writing this TV show. However, he has the moral high ground. Like, if you're thinking about ways to get us on the side or to see the point of view of this character, Wanda is imprisoning an entire town of people,
Right.
including children. She's attacking these agents. Like, there's a lot of moral high ground that this character could take that would get us to be like, okay, I do love this character. I'm still rooting for her, but I see your point, man. And they haven't connected that for us yet.
Yes.
So I do trust the show. And even if this ends up being like the one thing that they fumble, like whatever. But for where we are, episode 6 of 9, and especially in this episode, you felt it so much more than in any other one, where I was like, oh no, buddy, we need to move on because I can't take another episode of this. Like, something has to happen.
Yes. So, something has to give in terms of his arc, because truly, yeah, all of his scenes just felt I didn't like it. I wasn't.
Well, we start every episode with like, we loved it, so it's good to have like a thing that we're like, didn't like it. I'm proud of us.
Yeah.
Good job. So critical.
Look at that growth and nuance on our part.
Yeah.
Yeah. Him. Oh, my other sort of thing that I feel, if taken only at the face value of this episode, is Catherine Hahn / Agnes. I said this last week, that if she turns out to be just another like town normie, that I will find that disappointing. And in the context of this episode, that is implied. It is implied that she basically just like she got because she's one of several people who have had some breaks, and so like it's clear that she has expressed already repeatedly that she knows that she's in something, and so in the confines of this episode, the implication is that she like used that agency to like try to leave town, and she got stuck at the boundary, and then, as you know, and because as we saw, like the closer you get to the edge, the more like zombified people become, and that's the state that Vision finds her in, whatever. However, I still, I am like, the Haywood thing, I feel a little bit like it might be wishful thinking. Like I am less, I feel a little bit like that is the one thread that the show is ultimately going to let me down on, to be honest with you. I maintain that Agnes, like, that's still TBD, especially the fact that her costume, like, was, the fact that she was a witch. I just, like, I don't know. There's more. There's more going on there, right?
There. Okay. And I want to feel like them trying to lead us astray on this whole, like, she's just a normie. It is trying to lead us astray.
Yes.
Maybe, I don't know. If they go that route, I will still be kind of disappointed.
Yes.
Just because even within this, with them telling us, like, look how normal she is, it still doesn't feel the same as, like, everybody else. Even the people who are frozen at the edge, like, she has more interaction, she's talking. There are things that I'm like, it's not right. And then they include her in the title sequence of this episode. Like, she's in there with the family, like she's interacting with the boys. Don't get me started on her like bedazzled 2000s like naughty pants. Peak fashion of the era, but they say naughty on them. I don't know. I just feel like there is something more. And if we're leaning towards, you know, well, I guess it's different. Like, if Quicksilver is like the big bad, then maybe that leaves us more room to say Agnes isn't anything. Like, are they both in some way in cahoots? But I would be disappointed. I want Agnes to be something more than just a town normie.
And I still believe that she is. Like I still think there I kind of feel like my other sort of, I don't know, while we're just throwing shit out there, the thing, okay, this is like a half-formed thought. The thing that I was thinking in terms of like all of these disparate parts, right? So, uniting thread between one, the theory that it's not just Wanda. Something else is going on. Wanda
Right.
does not have full agency over this. Quicksilver is not quite who he seems, that there is something else going on with this Quicksilver, and Agnes is not quite who she seems. There is something else going on with that character. Like those three things feel those three facts feel deeply interconnected. First of all, like the answer to one is the answer to all three. Like in terms of what's the piece that we're missing, that the missing puzzle piece is for all three. That it's one piece that addresses all three of those questions. And like that either, which makes me feel like Agnes is either, my thought previously, prior to this episode, had been that Agnes was some sort of ally of Wanda's in some way, that like a complicated ally, because she's also sort of under the spell, but like that's like part of how she got sucked into it, is by being some sort of ally of Wanda's. This episode made me feel more like the other way around. Like she's a not that she's the, I don't think she's the one that's in charge, but that she's maybe a subordinate of whoever is in charge. Especially because there are ways that this is playing out that make me feel like so Wanda has no control over Vision, but like maybe Vision is like maybe that's on purpose in terms of whoever, whatever mystery who's behind, the man behind the curtain. Okay, the man behind the curtain, like that there is potentially something going on there, and like truly, what would destroy Wanda more than like bringing Vision back only to have him hate her? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not. There were like a lot of sort of half formed ideas in there, but those are the things. Yes. That's where my head is going.
So I'm going to, in order to address your ideas, I'm going to jump ahead in our notes because of the commercial that was in the middle of this episode.
Yes.
Was the commercial is like not tied to any MCU lore in the way, I don't think that I can
pre-existing lore.
Pre-existing, right? Like it wasn't like, we had a Hydra shout out or something that was like, oh, because years
Remember
ago
that
this
movie?
happened.
Yep.
Yeah, yes. This is just, and it was so 2000s, it hurt me also, like the actual commercial. That was really well done. But it's a little boy like stranded on an island, and he goes, I'm so hungry, like I would do anything for food or something like that, and a shark jumps out and has got this like magic yogurt, and he gives it to the little boy, and it turns so creepy so fast because he can't open the yogurt, and then we just see him age and sort of deteriorate, and then like that's the end of the commercial. So the idea that Wanda was somewhere stranded in her grief, if you will, and just like looking for anything, like she said, like all I felt was emptiness, and that somebody gave her something that points back to her own magic, like, this is like sort of a lifeline sort of thing, and it's created this like bad situation. Like that was sort of my read. I'm sure that you could read that like
I had 100% the exact same read. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That was absolutely my assumption, that was like in the way that all of the other commercials have been pointing back to stuff that we had seen in movies and stuff prior to this. That commercial felt like we were talking about now. Like that was, It felt like in the same way that like as we're getting closer and closer to the present in like the sitcom stuff, that also felt like, okay, we've gone through the history of what we've seen this character through before this show, and now we've arrived at like the show, or I guess this is the last bit of the prologue. That's the final entry into viewing the commercials as essentially the prologue to this show, and like that felt like the last puzzle piece. especially because at this point, given how far they jumped, I kind of like, I don't, seems like we're done, right? Like,
Yes, I think so. I think so. I think the sitcoms are done. I don't know how they phase them out or if we get like one more, but I don't know what that looks like in
Mhm.
terms of like what they're going to set up because I don't know, we're living it. And also like exactly what you said about like the further we get along, the more there just is to choose from. So
Uh-huh.
I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they phase it out, but it feels like we are done with this thing.
Yes. Yes. Or yeah, or at least if we get something else, it'll feel a little bit more like a continuation of, I mean, I felt the 60s episode flowed from the 50s episode so cleanly that like you could have told me they were both 50s and I would have been like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Sure.
and so like that something like that maybe to and like to episode 7 might be the like the full, we'll get something that is like the actual proper phase out. But like it feels, yeah, like we're basically done. And at that point, what do we have? 2 episodes left. After, you know, so if they give us something definitive on the sitcoms come episode 7, and then you can have 2 episodes of like big, you know, real big
Yeah.
finale.
Yeah.
Uh yeah, I yes. Yeah, so all of that to say that it definitely feels, I agree with you 100% that I had the exact same read on the commercial, and like especially in the context of like they have in this episode, like that's not even reading into like the season leading up to this. It's like literally the Wanda's line about feeling empty, and then this kid on an island who like starves to death trying to open the magic.
Right.
Seems
And then the fact that it's like, I know it's an island, but like a literal shark jumps out and offers her this, you know, it is something that is obviously very nefarious. And
mm-hmm.
watching the like the kid hold the yogurt and not be, it was so upsetting in
Yes.
a way that it just, I don't know, it has to be directly related to what we're watching, which is also incredibly upsetting, especially because throughout this episode, because Pietro is there, they tackle her grief in so many words in a way that they have tried in other episodes. But anytime somebody says anything, like we saw Monica go, oh yeah, Ultron, and she got yeeted out of the hex, right?
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
anytime anybody gets close, she throws up credits at the end in front of Vision, and she's like, we're not talking about this. So
Uh-huh.
this is the first time that we've had multiple times in the episode where somebody has brought it up, and you see her trying to deal with it, like whether it's a childhood memory or you
Mm-hmm.
know whether that's how did Pietro die, and so like multiple instances of him being like, this is happening, like
Mm-hmm.
your grief is here, and her at least being a little bit more able to look at it, even if ultimately, you know, Pietro said one too many things and he got also like, you know, flicked to the side. So
Yeah.
this was a grief, this was a episode heavy on saying this is what we knew all along, tied directly to her grief, but
Mm-hmm.
also she doesn't know what's going on here.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes. Yeah, and the also like to that end, this was like that commercial was like genuinely like haunting to watch in a way that the others have not been. Like the others have had like they've all had these clear illusions that like we know that this is another like not at Wanda's trauma, but like in a, you know, like in like a jokey, yeah, in this jokey
Yeah.
format that like is uncomfortable on purpose, that is like deliberately sort of uncomfortable. But this was like like sad, like it was like watching that commercial was like fucking sad and
Sinister.
uncomfortable, yes, and sinister, yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
And I mean, each of the other commercials could, they stand alone as a commercial. That, you know, like where you're like, I could have seen that commercial for that product. That was a commercial. This was not a commercial. What was it selling?
No,
Nothing.
yeah,
Sadness and grief.
the first
Like it
half of it was up until he gets like when the
yes.
shark hands him the yogurt, we're in a commercial. But then once the shark leaves, the rest of that was not how that
No.
commercial was supposed to end. Like that, yeah,
No.
that was clearly now we're doing the show, and that's all,
Yes.
yeah, like the blending too of like as the in like the episodes too, ever since the whatever it was, episode 4 I think was the one that was fully outside of the hex basically, like since that point we've been seeing the ways in which like the Hex world and the outside world are sort of bleeding. Like in this episode, the Hex literally ate up more of the outside world. The stuff that really the entire like outside world as we have been seeing it on the show basically was the camp, and that's now inside the Hex. So like those lines are shifting too, and so like that also feels like we're getting more closer and closer to the point of flattening of those pieces.
So in talking about Agnes and like whether or not like what her role is, the
Mm-hmm.
one little thing that throws a wrench in my thinking that maybe she has a more significant role is Herb, because we've
Yeah.
seen him act in a couple ways that also is like breaking out of his trance. Like he was having that conversation with Agnes a few episodes ago where Vision sees them and he's like he's clearly in the know, like he knows enough. And then in this one he also kind of breaks out of it when Wanda's questioning him about like the patrol, and he, gosh, I'm not even remembering the line, but he kind of questions, you know, like, oh, is this okay, sort of thing, like, do you, is what's happening okay, basically asking her permission in a way that makes it clear that he also knows that she's in charge here, which we haven't necessarily seen from other people. And that's kind of our basis for saying Agnes is acting different. But
Yeah.
if Herb is also acting different,
Okay, so I have two things. I mean, yes. Thing one, Herb is in the confines of the Hex, her husband. They're married, they're a couple.
yeah,
So like, uh, I don't know. There's like a proximity question that I think, I don't know, is that I think is relevant, I guess, in terms of her maybe not being sufficient to discredit the idea that she is different, but also, um, I, it feels like even that still wasn't quite the same kind of break that Agnes has had, you know?
yeah,
Yeah, and it to me that felt more like we are getting because elsewhere in this episode we are seeing other ways in which the veneer of the sitcom is either crumbling or was never that strong to begin with, whatever, but like uh so that feels like it could also be, tied in with that. I don't know. To me, I did not read that as it mattering that it was Herb specifically, that like literally it's just that he happens to be a character who we know, and so like that's why
yeah.
he got a line. It's really he has a name, he
Sure.
got a line. I, but like maybe it does matter, like maybe that was, I maybe in my head like Norm, that could have just as easily been Norm, but Herb is their neighbor, and so that's why it was him who had that line. But
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know. And either way it still feels different to me
yeah. Okay.
than like some of Agnes's breaks, but who knows.
We'll see, I guess.
Yes. um
Um, so we, looking at our notes, we talked a little bit about Wanda expanding the town, and
mhm.
just another absolute show of force and power here, because that moment, again, I, I'm rooting for you, but I'm not, girl, because she is just such a badass. And that moment where she just like and like spreads everything was so, like, I don't know, you're like yay, but you're like, wait, no, 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 boo,
Yep.
but
But
yay.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
Look at you
Uh-huh.
go. But
Uh-huh.
it also, I mean, you kind of have to go back to the fact that at the edge of town, all these people are zombies.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are we thinking, that she doesn't have the ability to like puppet everyone, or she's choosing not to? She's like, okay, these are my 4 square blocks of where I live, or what is it exactly that's happening as you get further away from Wanda?
Yeah, I don't yeah, truly I don't know. Okay, this that to me also feels like it feels related to my incomplete like feeling that there's something going on with Vision, that like Vision is part of the plan in some way, that I haven't figured out, that I don't understand, but like that was on purpose, like that everything being that way, that was like, that felt possibly staged, either staged or related to whatever the thing we don't know about Haywood yet, whatever it is that Darcy found about Haywood.
Yeah.
One of those two things, or I mean, or I guess maybe possibly both, but like that, yeah, I don't know. It felt like maybe that was there for Vision to find, for a reason that was not Wanda. You know, that somebody else facilitated that.
I can't remember now, but do we know, or did they show how the Sword Agents, like, did they see Vision coming and that's why they were waiting for them, or were they just waiting for him?
They did show this. Darcy saw that Haywood is tracking vibranium. So he's got like a vibranium signatures, and so that's how he sees Vision, how he can see Vision specifically, and had been like, so yeah, so on their little screen. So that's how Darcy knew too, because she had like hacked in and she saw, and then whatever.
Yes. Okay. And then they were all waiting for him, and the confirmation, I guess, that Vision cannot exist outside of the hex. So whatever it is that's happening, our poor girl is gonna lose her man again.
It's
hate it.
Unfortunate. Very unfortunate, but
and it makes us question what happens to Tommy and Billy outside of the hex. Well, they're not the same.
Yeah,
they're not the same.
And it also, in you know, this kind of goes back to Quicksilver too, and like what happens to him and like how he fits into all of this, because we didn't mention it, but somebody also pointed this out in the chat, that they used Aaron Taylor Johnson's Quicksilver as part of the recap in the episode. Like they included clips of him in Ultron, like Ultron clips, before cutting us back to the show, in which we have this completely different actor playing this character.
And previously they made sure to include the line, Darcy's line of, they recast him?
Yes, which yeah, like 100%. Like that line I loved last week when you pointed out that you were like, oh, I didn't like when she said that was like, I was like, when I was watching it, I was like, okay, whatever, that feels like that was a little cheesy, but it's fine. But when you pointed out that you had no idea, I was like, oh, that's, yes, they have to make sure. Just so you're all clear, this is not the same man.
It's been so long since I watched Age of Ultron or any X-Men movies, and he's a white man. Like, what do I know?
No, it's totally fair. To be clear, I'm being sincere when I say that you saying that made me go, oh yeah. No, they had to have that happen. And like,
I mean, I needed that line, but yes. I also felt like, oh, bad line, but I needed it. So.
Like, there's no other way. There's no other way that doesn't become too convoluted. Like, you know, to have like an actual conversation to get us there. Like that's the quickest and cleanest. Yeah. So, and he's a white man. It's true. It's true. No lies detected. Everything you said, I question none of it.
If this were not live, I would probably edit that part out and be like, Maddie, too much.
No, man, it's out there. And again, it's true. So yeah. And not only that, but like there are just so many. I was about to say there are just so many characters in general in the MCU, but really there are so many white men in general in the MCU. So you know, how one's supposed to keep track of all of them? Yeah, and especially now that they're trying to throw a white man from another superhero franchise. He wasn't on the syllabus. He wasn't part of the assigned reading for the class.
You didn't tell us to cover this.
So
I am speaking sort of, I don't know, Darcy's line made me think about this, but we are like wrapping up here, and I just need to mention, I don't know, again, more my hope than anything, and because this show has delivered so far, but I'm so freaking excited for her to be inside of the hex.
yes.
Like, I don't know what this is going to entail, but Darcy in the hex, yes, let's go. Let's see what happens.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Very pro Darcy and the Hex.
Yep.
Yeah, very excited to see
Mhm.
Darcy and Darcy working at a circus in the Hex. Is that what's about to happen? Is that what we're about to get? I'm ready for it. I love it. Thrilled.
Yes, I do too. Yes.
And also like, yeah, Darcy potentially helping get through to Wanda. Yeah, I super thrilled to see whatever they do. I was also excited because given that, like, you know, before that we had gotten Darcy getting eaten by the Hex happens like at the end of the episode. So we've already established that this show is Monica's superhero origin story. So many people got swallowed up at the same time that I kind of feel like they're going to tie it to Monica going in and out and in and out. It's like that's really
Yes.
where that's actually going. But
Yep.
you know, a girl can dream that Darcy's going to get some superpowers too.
Our astrophysicist, hacker, Supergirl.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly where I'm going with this.
Yes.
And
I think they are going to tie it because they mentioned that she's already been through twice, and now this would be presumably the third time, maybe even a fourth time.
If she comes back out again. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
however,
and we're talking about wish list items, like Darcy can have a little sprinkle of power.
You know, Darcy can have like a few powers as a treat. Maybe it's like a reward from Wanda for helping her when all of this resolves. Wanda can whoosh her some powers.
Pocky in the chat said they think that we're gonna get one more sitcom because in one of the posters, Darcy had like another costume.
Oh. Now I'm Googling it. Hitting the old Google.com.
We hear the clickety clack.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. And it's like,
wait, now I have to
you gotta
Google.com.
look. Okay, hold on here. Let me. Oh, I can't jump in the chat with you. No, you have to look at it up yourself. I was like, can I do a thing? No, I can't. There's like an emblem on it. Maybe hold on. Wait, let me. Now I'm trying to figure out if I can in fact open image in new tab. Let's see if I can do this. Share
Here we go.
My screen for the benefit of, oh God, I've created chaos is what has happened. I did bad. Never mind. No, this is bad. Cancel.
You tried.
Yeah. No, I mean.
What are we supposed to be looking at?
WandaVision. I searched Darcy Lewis WandaVision poster. Is how I got it. Just so we're clear, I broke the stream trying to pull it up.
There's an emblem. Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, yes. Apologies for that little detour there. There is some sort of emblem on her like coat through the TV show. So it seems to me like, yeah, maybe it could mean that there's another sitcom episode, but also like that there's something else coming for Darcy. Like that doesn't feel like we're alluding to a sitcom.
Sitcom.
That feels like we're alluding to Darcy's next MCU, wherever her story goes next.
Yeah.
Is the vibe I get from that.
I do too.
And I'm excited. I love it.
I am too. I love it a lot.
I'm thrilled. Yeah, because like the main, because one of the original posters, now I'm like looking at all the posters and stuff in here, but there's one of the earliest posters was the very drawn looking like 50s Wanda and Vision, and that has this same sort of style. There's one of them that is like that, and there's like a larger image of Wanda and Vision as human beings, but there are TVs over their bodies, and through the TVs you can see their superhero outfits. And that's kind of the vibe on this Darcy thing. So,
and then the one that is for Jimmy Woo is the same thing, a bunch of TVs, but they're just like him as an FBI agent. Like they're not, there's nothing else more. So for Darcy's to be like something different.
I'm ready.
I'm excited.
I'm ready for it.
Yep.
Monica's is also just her with the TV, but that's because for her it would have been, hers is more of a spoiler. I feel like I could see why that information would need to be more guarded. But anyway,
yeah,
I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens for Darcy.
I am too.
Before.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I am nervous for Vision back in the Hex and Wanda's reaction to him like trying to get out, or what's going to happen, because there has been big like mommy and daddy are fighting energy over the last couple of episodes, and even in this one where he's like, you replaced all my, I didn't have any other clothes, I had to wear this costume. He was mad about it at first, but then he like, you're incorrigible, and like played along with it. He lied to her about the whole neighborhood watch thing, so there are enough seeds there where I'm like, oh no, mommy and daddy are fighting. So I'm curious what her reaction is going to be, if it's going to be more angry, more upset, more hurt, or if she's going to continue to try and play it off like nothing is happening. So
yeah,
Darcy and Vision are like my two big curiosities for next time.
Yes, truly unsure what we are going to learn, and excited and stressed on the Vision front, just plain excited on the Darcy front. I'm also really excited to see what comes of Monica's, I have no idea what her end game is going to be as a superhero. I'm really excited to see it. That's also on the list of things that, like, now we are getting to a point where I am starting to have more expectations in a way that, like, in the first few weeks I was just like, I don't know, man, we're on a weird ride and I love it and I'm ready for whatever they're going to throw at me. The closer we get to the end, the more I'm like, I'm still open to the ride, but I'm starting to develop some feelings about, like, I don't have specifics about like what I want or need any of these things to be, but it's like narrowing the range of things that like I want to have happen, that like something has to come of X. Like the Pietro thing, even though I am very much of the, like, I feel like this Quicksilver, he's not just him, that there's something else going on there. There also has to be a reason that they chose the other actor. Like, that has to have some sort of significance, even if it's not actually him. Like, that there's whatever, like
something,
something, especially based on this episode where they like literally used a clip, that merging. So,
I think that like willing to go along for the ride in the beginning was very much because of this, like, okay, I will go wherever you take me, but you have to take me somewhere. So now that we're in the back half of the season, like all of those feelings of like, I don't care that this was weird at the on the onset, like, but it has to come together. And I'm the same way. Like, I don't have like things where I'm like, I really want this to happen or that to happen. I mean, even Darcy's powers, that's like a fun, like, if it didn't happen, I don't care. Like, like, we're on the same page of like, these would be cool, but also I don't care. I need it to come together in the end. And for, even if all the like weird little things don't exactly have explanations, enough of the threads have to come together of like, okay, this is why this happened. So yeah, we're getting there.
Yes.
Running out of time. The reason I'm still hopeful though is because I feel like episode over episode, they do a good job of confirming little pieces for us. So I don't feel as in the dark as I was in episode 1. Like, I feel like I'm always like, ooh, this is probably happening. And they give us a little nod of like, you're right, Wanda isn't completely in control.
Right.
And you're right.
Yes.
That is Vision's dead body that is being like, whatever. So over and over, they're confirming bit by bit by bit. So even if it doesn't feel like we're learning a lot, we're learning. Now we just need the bow on top.
Well, especially because like we're learning plenty given like the number of minutes too that we're dealing with. Like you know, we talked about this last time too, just how compact the storytelling is here and how well they're telling this much story in so little time.
Yes.
That like, yes, when we like eventually go back and rewatch this stuff, I feel like it's gonna be shocking, like to see, you know, like to see it in this sort of compressed time. At the beginning, we talked in the first episode about the ways in which it made perfect sense to me watching episodes 1 and 2 why they chose to release the first two together. That I was like, yeah, the storytelling here is clearly going to be slow, or at least it started out very slow, and you know you need to give people like a hint, like the clear indication that like something else is coming, and I can see why people would wish that they could watch this show in a binge format, and I think the show will be great in that format. But I also, and maybe I'm biased because we're doing this, I do feel like I actually do feel like it's kind of to the show's benefit that they're doing this like weekly rollout because of how fucking weird, like because they're doing all of this sort of, you know, they're sending us in so many different directions, that it is, I think that there is some value in getting to spend a week like thinking about, you know, like thinking about what we've seen, and you know,
Yes.
even in the course of the last week, there are several things that we didn't talk about last, like things that I thought about that I was like, oh, we didn't even discuss, like Wanda leaving the hex and the accent change, like the fact that she like slipped back into mercifully not the full Ultron accent, which was fucking terrible, but the more subtle accent that she adopted in the later movies, like there were hints of that, like yeah, like there is just so much there that I don't know, like I feel perfectly comfortable having full-on hour-long conversations about this half-hour sitcom that
Right.
And still feeling like we didn't discuss everything in that time.
Right.
So,
and I think we've had conversations before just with SnarkSquad stuff about the sort of media that is like consumed, sort of is meant to be consumed in this communal way, right? And we talked about it a lot, Game of Thrones, just because of the way that people consume that, and any sort of media that has like an element where people are guessing or there's some sort of mystery that like can really lend itself to this sort of conversation, and people, you know, doing all of this work. But I think it's especially needed and good in a series like this that has so much material already existing. It's the same reason Game of Thrones was that way too, is that you have this whole fandom already built, and you've got this whole world, and all of these things, whether directly or indirectly, are feeding into what we're currently watching. So it is just ripe for this sort of consumption. I agree, and I am going to go back and binge it because I feel like that will inform like a whole different set, like a whole different viewing experience. But I'm so glad that I watched this real time, because yes, this I think is like a key part of what this show is doing, and I think it knows it. I think that it's weird, and it's giving us hints. It's dropping things in there for us to sort of process in this way. So yes, absolutely. Like people, I get why you wouldn't want to like wait, but also I think you're missing something if you're not watching it kind of this way as well.
Yeah, yes, this has very big. I know there are no water coolers anymore. But this is a water cooler show.
100%. Yes.
I hadn't even thought about that. Your point about like the larger universe, but that 100% is like really central to what's going on here. I mean, we have mentioned now that we have, you know, notes that we're looking at while we're doing this, and scrolling back through these notes, like we have a section of Marvel, like it's just every time. Okay, so Marvel, right? Like so there's the show, there's the sitcom bits, there's, you know, the sword bits, and then there's like Marvel. Like those are our three sort of essential discussions in terms of ways to look at every episode of this show. And yeah, like given all of that additional material, I mean, without that, to tell this same kind of story without all of that, the show would have to be so much longer. Like this show really is relying on that in Not that I don't think you could watch this show by it. Like I think you could watch the show by itself and like not have seen any of the Marvel stuff. Like I do think that it has enough internal structure for that to be workable, but it is also clearly designed. It's assuming that the other stuff. Like
Even,
and
yeah.
you would be missing a lot of what it is doing without all of that.
Even apart from like missing a lot of like the nods and whatever, you need Vision is dead, the Avengers, the snap, just to make this make sense. You
Yeah, that's
need
true.
those
That's
building
true.
blocks of like you're not going to understand what Wanda is even doing if you don't
Yeah.
understand that Vision died, how he died, what happened during the snap. Like all of those people, all of those pieces are integral to this particular story. So
Yeah, yeah,
even if you
yeah.
don't get that Pietro's from one universe and not the other, or why they had a Hydra watch commercial, like those things are nothing. But you need to know.
Yeah. You really do need Infinity War and Endgame. Yes, yeah. I take that back. Those two things actually are really central. You can't actually process this show correctly without those things because this is a grief show, and you need to understand her grief. This show does not exist to teach you what her grief was. Like that, this show exists from the jump saying, so we know that this character has lost a lot, right? Like that's where
This
we're
character's on a
starting.
deserted island, starving. Like,
Yes. That's our launching point. Yeah. I take it back. I retract my prior statements.
I'll just add. I know we're like at past the hour here, but I saw a tweet and I can't remember. It was a mutual, so I can't even remember who it was,
Sorry,
but it was
friend.
scrolling. Yeah, sorry, friend. That they basically are not, I don't think, watching real time, or if they are, they're just kind of commenting how weird it would be to, or like one of those pop culture things, like anti-culture things, where probably seeing everybody doing this. And the tweet was something along the lines like, if Jesus showed up in next week's episode of WandaVision, like people would be like, knew it, called it, because there's so much speculation and like
Yeah.
probably seeing this and being on the outside, it's probably like really annoying, but I'm having a blast. So
yeah. Sorry you're
and if
not at the
Jesus,
party with
yeah.
us, but like uh
Yes. I mean, it's the same thing when like the Super Bowl comes along and everybody's like, what's sports ball? Like
yeah.
if you're on the outside of it, like I can understand why it's annoying,
I
but
hate those tweets too. As I also don't give a shit about the Super Bowl, and I think those tweets are fucking annoying too. Like I just especially because most of the people who tweet that are the same people who again are like tweeting about Game of Thrones or whatever, where I'm just like, come on. Like
or like, okay, I don't know, something's happening with Taylor Swift. I don't
right.
listen to her music, but have fun, everybody. Enjoy. Like
Yes. Yeah. Like it's
let us
so
have this
boring.
one happiness in these bad times. Bringing
This
it full
is
circle to Sad Girl Hour.
this is the only party I get to go to, okay? This is it. This is my one standing social engagement. I said this when I was like live streaming our Among Us games. That was it. That was like, okay, this is my way of recreating having fun with
Friends.
friends. So
And on that note,
that's all of our SnarkSquad pandemic content is always going to bring you back around to Sad Girl Hour because come on, you're here too. You know why. So on that note, I guess we're done. Thank you guys
yes.
for joining us this time to our small but mighty live crew. Hello to anybody who chose to watch us belatedly, and yeah, we'll see
you next week.
Wow, can't wait.